Hello and welcome to this demonstrational video. Today it's the 2018 Swift Bollero 744. So we'll go around in a methodical manner, starting with the outside, then we'll go on to the inside. Okay, so first things first, we open the passenger door here. There's a couple of things. So you've got your darkening blinds. So to operate those, you pinch this together like that. Draw this across, and then there's a magnetic strip which holds it in position. That's exactly the same on the driver's side, and it's a very similar operation on the windscreen, which we'll come to in a sec. When you're putting this back, just make sure that you go straight in order not to crumple up the blinds, and make sure that that's put back into position and clicked in place. Obviously if you're driving and it's not clicked in, that could slide across and impede your vision. Okay, so exactly the same thing on the windscreen. Pinch these two together, pull it across. There's a little section that will there's a little section there that allows for the reversing camera to go past the reversing camera, and this is a magnetic strip on here. So you draw that across, you can see it misses the camera there, and then there's a magnetic strip on the driver's side. You just pull those together, and then they join together in the center on that magnetic strip. Again, making sure that that's clipped back into position. You don't want that to come across when you're driving. The bonnet catch is just here, so pull that and that releases the bonnet. There's a tire pressure plate here, but it is worth referring to the tires themselves, because sometimes they use specialist camping tires which are capable of operating at higher pressures. Your fuel fill is just here, so your diesel fuel into there, and you will need the key for that. Okay, so I'll show you underneath the bonnet. Just lift the bonnet, put the catch on, so the arm stay is just there. Right, underneath here we've got washer fluid, so that's where your windscreen washer is filled, coolant, brake fluid, oil fill, dipstick. If you ever need to jump start the vehicle or jump start another vehicle from this one, then your negative or your black cable and earth goes onto this one here, and then your positive red cable goes onto a little tab which is just under here. So they need the key to lift that little cover up, then that metal tab there is where you jump start the vehicle. The battery isn't underneath here, it's in a tray on the floor underneath the passenger's seat. Okay, so the engine battery is in this tray here, so you remove that cover and the tray is in there. Got a toolbox, that's where the jack and the tools are. Okay, so just to swivel the seats on this model, it's got captain's chairs, so on both sides what you do is you pull that lever there, and then that will allow you to swivel the seats round. They only lock into position when they're forward facing. When they're rear facing into the lounge area, they don't lock into position and they just swivel. Okay, this model's been fitted with Gaslow, which is the refillable system. To fill it, it's this fill point here. In the UK it'll go straight onto that filler point. If you're taking it abroad in the European countries, there's adapters just there for those individual European countries. To switch the gas on, it's these taps here, and there's an indication via these just here. There's a gauge to show you how full the bottles are. So yeah, you switch your gas on via these taps. There's a changeover valve which is this here. You can spin that around and prioritise which bottle you want to use, or you can just leave it in the middle and it'll feed from both bottles. There's another isolation tap there, but you shouldn't need to use that. That's just if you need to isolate from the bottles. Okay, so next thing along here, we've got the fridge vents. So what they do, it draws cool air in at the bottom and expels warm air at the top, so it's ventilation for the fridge. If you're using a powerful pressure washer, just be careful, don't spray it up into these vents. These are designed so that the water runs off, as you can see from the way they're shaped. There's some winter covers here. If it's really cold weather or it's blowing a gale, it just stops wind going into these vents. You can put them on while you're traveling, but they're really only for adverse weather conditions. So we've got the winder for the awning there. Now there is a separate video on how to operate the awning. Basically that winder there goes into the gearbox, which is on the end of the awning here, and you wind it out, but there is a separate video for that. I'll try and put that in the description for this video, but it is just searchable via our YouTube channel. I think this customer in the past must have had the outside barbecue point moved, so that's the previous barbecue point, and a new one has been installed at the back here, so that's we'll come to that in a sec. To fill the water tank, you just put a hose pipe into this filler here, and you need the key for that. Okay, with this you need to hold the actual cap steady and then turn the key separately from the cap, and then to get the cap off, push it in and spin it around. Hose pipe into there until water pours back out, and that's your fresh water tank fill. Okay, this is just another, it's a 12 volt supply this. If you pull this cap off, there's like 2 pins. Should you have a container of water on the floor and you wanted to put a submersible pump into there, you can pump from water on the floor into the tank, but it defeats the object really. You might as well just fill up the tank directly with your hose pipe. Your fresh water drain comes out of this tap here, but it is an automatic drain which is inside, so it's an electronic valve which is just housed behind the tap there, and next to the control panel, that's where that's emptied. So when you're in winter or whenever you're not using the vehicle, it's very important to get all the water out of the tanks. If water's left in the tanks and it freezes, it'll expand, it'll crack the tanks and damage all the pipework. Okay, so it's an important thing to do, the drain down procedure. So I'll go around it as we go through the individual tanks, but that's your freshwater tank. Very important to drain that down when you're not using it or in freezing conditions. So when you do that, open up the taps, so your kitchen tap, your bathroom tap inside, and what that does, it lets air in as the water is pouring out of the bottom here. So that's what that is, and that's where it's located. We've got some carpets here that the previous customer left in. The leisure batteries are housed underneath this cover here, so you just take off these screw caps and then the leisure battery or batteries are underneath there. That's a strengthening bar for the awning. It just keeps the awning fabric under tension. So yeah, this is the barbecue point that I mentioned, and what you do is this little attachment here. You attach the flexible hose that is going to go off to your appliance, whether it be a barbecue or whatever, to this section of the brass fitting, and then that would coil off and go off to your barbecue, wherever you choose to put that. And then to connect this to your gas supply, you take this brass fitting and push it in like so. Okay, and then to release it, you push this collar back, this collar here, push that back, and that releases the brass fitting. To switch the gas supply on, it's this tap here, and you're turning it so that it's pointing in line with the flow of the gas. It will only allow you to do that when this is in position. Okay, working on around the motorhome then. We are replacing the camera for this customer. One of those has got water ingress into the lens, so that's where the lenses are. Obviously just make sure that they're kept clean. If water is on the lens, then it will give a distorted vision, but that's where the camera is located. This is the vent for the boiler, so when the heating is on and the hot water is on, that's where the exhaust would come out, especially if you're heating it on gas, like your domestic boiler at home. This model's been fitted with an external shower, and that's where the external shower head goes into. This is where your electric supply comes in. Now there isn't an electric cable in this, but so one will be needed for this motorhome. You just slot it in like this. So this has got a lid, and then the lid, you put the lid up like that, and the lid slides flat. You push that in, and that's your electric supply. Next to that, we've got the toilet cassette. So whenever the toilet needs emptying, everything, all the toilet waste is gathered into this cassette, which is in here. So we'll open that up. Okay, so that's the toilet cassette. When it needs emptying, what you do is you lift this handle up here, slide this out, and then in theory this will be full of toilet waste. To empty it, slide that nozzle forward, unscrew the cap off the end, and then with the cap off the end, turn the cassette upside down and pour away the toilet waste. As you're doing so, press this button in here. It lets air in to the cassette as the liquid is flowing out, and then that stops splashes and glugs from the cassette as you're emptying it. Once you've emptied it, what I tend to do, slide this back, open up this valve here which gives you access to the cassette, fill it full of fresh water, rinse it around again, and then empty it. It's then ready to put the toilet chemical in. So you put the toilet chemical into here, or the sachets, whichever you choose to use, and a little bit of water to line the bottom, then it's ready to use again. Just make sure that this is fully closed and that key there is facing that way as it looks now. Slide this back and put it back into its housing. This has got wheels on it, as you can see, and an extendable handle that allows you to wheel it over to the disposal point. Just near the toilet cassette waste outlet there is so this is the waste water outlet. So you can see it's exactly the same system. It's a pipe that the waste water is drained from. So when your waste tank is full, it's got an onboard waste tank. Can you see this electric valve here with a wire coming down to it? There's a control inside next to the control panel, which I'll show you. And that's how you empty the grey or the waste water. So everything that goes down the sink, down the shower, ends up in a tank underneath, and there's an indication on the control panel to show you how full that is. And then when it needs emptying, you press the button, and that's where it drains it from. Okay, so we'll go on to inside the motorhome now, and I'll show you the controls inside. Okay, first things first then, we've got the main controls here. Now, I've switched the heating on so that I can show you, so I'll probably deal with that first and then I can switch the heating off. Okay, so to switch this control panel on, as you would imagine, it's the on button just here. Okay, so with that switched on, press the menu button, and then you can select which temperature you want the motorhome to be operating at. So I've put it on full at the moment, just to make sure I can show you the header tank, which is, so this uses radiators. Okay, so it's got radiators rather than a blown air heating system. So that's your temperature that you're setting for the motorhome. Just turn this down. Okay, so whatever temperature you desire, then that's what you set it to just there. This is your water temperature. It will allow you to select varying temperatures, but you might as well just leave it on hot, mix it with cold, and then you've got a lot of warm water. Next one down is electric, so you can select which kilowatt you want the electric to heat the vehicle and your water. The reason for that is if you're on a low ampage site, particularly abroad, 1 kilowatt will be suitable for a low ampage site. 3 kilowatts is only really suitable for a 13 amp site, which most UK sites are. So they'll tell you that when you arrive at the site. If you want to heat the motorhome and water on gas, you simply press that button, and you can see it's green there, so we're actually operating on gas as we speak. So it will allow you to heat it on gas and electric together. There's a settings menu here, which I won't go into at the moment, just for the purposes of demonstration. There's no need to go into that, but there is an instruction manual showing you all the controls. While we're on the subject of the hot water and the heating, the header tank for the coolant which runs through the radiators is housed just here. And as you can see, there's an indication there to show you how full that radiator system is. So it's worth just keeping an eye on that. And if it when you've got it switched on, if it goes below the minimum level which is indicated, then it probably needs topping up. The boiler is housed in this area here, just underneath this cushion, and it's very important, again, whenever it's not in use, that the boiler is drained down. This is probably the most important thing to remember as maintenance. So that's the boiler. There's access to a drain valve which is just under here, just there. Now that yellow tab is now closed. That will retain all the water within the boiler and all of the associated pipework that you can see. To open that and drain all the water from the boiler and the pipework, you lift that tab up like so. So that is in the laid up position, or whenever you're not going to use it, then that valve, you need to drain all the water out of this boiler. In order to use it and retain the water within the boiler, it must look like that. Okay, back to the control panel then. In order to fill that boiler, which we've just discussed at the back there, you need to fill up your fresh water tank and then pump the water from the fresh water tank through all the pipework, fill up the boiler, and then then you can switch your hot water on. If you switch your hot water on with no water in it, basically you're just heating thin air in the boiler and it could damage it. Okay, so in order to do that, you have your control panel here. You switch the pump on via that button there, and then you need to come over to your taps, switch on your tap onto hot via this here, wait until you get a pure flow of water coming out of your tap, and then you know you've filled the boiler and you've filled all the associated pipework. So don't switch your boiler on basically onto water until you've switched on your tap and purged all the system through. Okay, so that brings us onto the control panel just here. You've got your light switches down this side here. Again, that's the water pump. To switch on the control panel, obviously it's the on button here. So this information that we've got here, we've got leisure. We're using the leisure battery and it's charging because we're plugged in. L for leisure, so it shows that we're running on the leisure battery. You might have seen that symbol just illuminate there. That was for the solar panel, and that tells you that we are plugged into mains. We've got a supply coming in of 4 amps. Okay, and the battery's reading 14.1. It won't read that if we unplugged it, because obviously we've got a charge going into the leisure battery. So you can scroll through the menus here, and you can see it's changing here. So the Sergeant, that's just the control panel model number. System settings, you can change the settings within the system. Again, I won't go into that. Heater settings, ignore that because you're using this control panel for your heater. Dimmer level, you can set the brightness of your lights and the control panel. Internal temperature 17.4. Right, you can set the amperage that you want the air conditioning unit to top out at. Tank heaters, so it'll allow you to switch on the tank heaters. You do so by pressing that button there. So what that does is it heats the waste water and the freshwater tank just to prevent it from freezing. It doesn't heat them up, it just stops freezing in really cold weather. You can select whether you want your leisure or your vehicle battery. You can see it's changed over there. I wouldn't recommend using your vehicle battery other than extreme emergencies. If you flattened your leisure battery and you need lights, then obviously use the vehicle battery, but if you flatten that, you're in trouble. Solar power, it just tells you what the solar panel is inputting into the batteries. Leisure battery in good condition at 13.5 volts, and we've got charge coming in. And then we're back to the main menu. So these are the drain downs for the tanks, which I showed you outside. In that position, it opens the valve. Okay, so I'm going to leave those open. So that's your wastewater and that's your fresh water. So that's done automatically. The controls for your air conditioning, which this model has had fitted, are just there, and your air conditioning unit is roof mounted. To make up the bed on this model, this section here is pulled out to the centre, as is this section here. So what you do, lift that up, it's got a leg which folds down like so. Put that cushion onto this section, that cushion goes flat, and then that's that bit made up. And then you pull out this section here and do exactly the same, so that section pulls out, meets up with this bit like so. Pull that cushion into that section there to bridge the gap, put those flat. Now there is a piece here that needs bridging, and we are going to make a piece for that. It's missing from the previous owner, but it is literally just a piece of wood that goes into that section to bridge the gap. So then you end up with all of this here as your bed. Okay, so moving on then, we've got the fridge. This is a 3-way fridge. It'll run on 3 different power sources. To switch the fridge on, you press this button here. Okay. Now, the best way to use this is just put it on auto, so it'll automatically select the most relevant power source. So if you do that, what it'll do, it'll look for electric first, then it'll try and find gas if it's not plugged in, then it'll go to the 12 volts. So electric, perfectly usable, and it'll get the fridge cold, and it's dead efficient. As is gas, and you can manually select these yourself by doing this, pressing the button. Okay, and then the next one along is the symbol of the battery. That runs from the engine battery. It will only work when the engine is running. It won't get the fridge cold, it just keeps it cold as you're travelling. But as I say, if you put it on that's the best way to operate this fridge, because it'll just automatically switch over the power source. You've got a temperature control here. In really hot weather, you want the fridge to work harder, like so. In really cold weather, no point having it on full, it'll just ice up. Okay. If you're not using the motorhome for any length of time, don't leave the fridge door closed. It will stagnate. You'll get stagnant air building up. It'll start to smell. There's a little catch just here that I'm pointing to. If you push that forward, it stops the fridge door being closed fully. Switch the fridge off. It's just that long press on that button there, and then to open it, you press the button in on the top there. Okay, so washroom. To use the toilet, lift the lid up. And then there's a slider here which opens and closes the valve. Okay, so when you need to use the toilet, lift the lid, open the valve, use the toilet, press your flush button, which is this here, and then ensure that you close the valve off before travelling off, otherwise you've got liquid slushing around in here, which obviously is not good. When the cassette is full, there's an indication that will illuminate there. The light switch for the bathroom is just here. The shower head, I would probably travel with the shower head lower down into the shower tray. If that falls out while you're travelling, it can fall out and go onto the plastic and crack the plastic. Okay, tables are in here. We've ordered a new table for this one. It's just arrived. The legs need fitting to it. So the freestanding table, which goes here. There's a little table that can go occasional table at the front, and also another bigger one. The leg that you can see there goes into that round disc there, and then the leg supports the table. This has got an aerial here, TV aerial. To unscrew that, you push it up, twizzle it around. But this has actually got a satellite dish. To operate the satellite dish, again, just to reiterate, this satellite dish accessories like this aren't covered under our warranty. But to operate it, there's a button. Sorry, the on-off button is just there. If you press these two buttons here together, then okay, you can see it operating there. And then it's an automatic system where the satellite dish rises up. Now, I've gone through this and it's found its satellite. You can see it's adjusting itself there, and it's locked onto a satellite. So there you go. Sometimes it'll spin around for a long time if you can't find the satellite, but I've just tuned it in and it's found it straight away. So that's the satellite dish. To retract it, if you start the engine, I think it'll retract, but if you press these two together and hold them, then the satellite dish, you can see, retracting. Okay, we've got a book pack here with all the information, instructions, etc. To make the bed up in the back area here, all we do is exactly the same as the front really. Draw this over like so. That's got a leg on it. Okay, so you can see that leg. Exactly the same operation on this side. Put those cushions either into the centre on here, or just pull this one out and then put the smaller cushion down where that reveals the gap where you take this from, and then you end up with all this as bed. Okay, so I think that concludes the video. I think I've covered all the main controls there. Of course, if you've got any questions that arise from this, then please let us know before collection, and then we can try and get those answered for you so it's a smooth and efficient handover process. So we look forward to seeing you, and we hope you enjoy this fantastic new Swift 744 Bollero model.